I'm Stuart here. I'm with Aja Holiday. Our guest today is Kim Sandberg, and this is MaidCentral Partner Profiles. You know how hard it is to do that and not say smart business moves?
I heard the slightest pause this time. Slightest pause.
Old habits.
So close.
Kim,
Yeah.
how in the heck are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm great. Kim and I and Aja all had the opportunity to spend a week together out on the Isle of Palms. What was that, about a month ago, maybe? Maybe a little
A month and a half, yeah.
Yeah. At Foundations 13.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun and got to know Kim really well and got to get a deeper understanding of some really awesome stuff she's doing in her house cleaning business. And she's going to be our guest today, and she's going to give us the skinny.
Go all the way in, all the way in.
I'm really excited for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
do we want to? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aja. You take.
Yeah, no worries. I was just gonna ask. What did you do before, coming into this cleaning industry? Before you decided to do this crazy thing in the cleaning world?
So my first career and what I went to school for was culinary arts. So I was a professional chef for a little over 15 years or so, and I really thought that was going to be it for me, and I was 110% committed to it. And in 2008, I wanted to buy my own restaurant, and so I started looking at it. Of course, 2008, as you recall, was a terrible year to be starting any kind of business.
Unfortunately.
But
good idea, bad timing.
So that was the year I went for it. And I started looking at a bunch of really fine dining establishments, and the ones that I could afford were not making any money. And so okay, fine. More casual restaurants still not making any money. Fast casual, not now I'm looking at fast food and gas stations. And, I was still down with it in theory because I still got to at least work with food, but it wasn't really feeding my soul. And I started working with a broker in this process who was was going with me through the ride. And he was like, I've got this business and it's doing okay. And it was, so they neglected to pay the IRS for a year, which is kind of a big deal. So they were eager to sell so they could afford to pay back the IRS. Anyways, long story short, he sent me all of the financials, but he took out all of the identifying information. So I couldn't figure out what they did or where they were doing it at. I had no idea. And I was like, okay, fine. The numbers at least look solid enough. Sure, I'll at least take a look at it. And he's like, it's a cleaning service. And I said, have you seen my house? That's not. No, I'm good.
Very funny. Very funny.
So he, anyways, the more I considered it, the more I felt like that it was, while not in my first love being food, it was not with my first love. It was still feeding a lot of my desires to be able to have a family and be able to, to own my own business and further my skills in that regard. Yeah. And so I started entertaining it, and about a year later, we finally were able to close the deal, and I've owned it ever since. And we are, it really was not doing wonderfully. And for the longest time, I learned from the people who, learned from the former owners, and it was a lot of just regurgitating the same stuff and never getting anywhere, not really ever getting better, but not really getting worse either. It was very stagnant, and we were around $500,000 for over a decade. Again, just kind of churning and burning the same stuff over and over again. And I was kind of sick of it, not really feeling like I was progressing and feeling like I'm putting all this effort in, but not getting much out of it. So I learned about Laura Christian Smith was doing an online class for cleaning business owners, and I signed up for that. And I absolutely died over the content. I everything I was doing was wrong, and I needed to change everything. And so I did. And that was now, I guess, about 2 years ago. And or 3 years ago? 2 years
It was 2. It was the last thing I did.
Yes. And I've changed just about everything I've been doing, literally everything. How I talk to clients, how I talk to employees, how I approach anything and everything, really. I mean, my business is a complete 180 from where I used to be, and it's been
And signed up for MaidCentral right then too. March
yeah.
2022.
Yes. Yep. And I learned so much about my business and things that I never could have possibly tracked before, because that information didn't exist. We just simply did not track it. We did not. We just didn't. And so I came from a complete paper-based calendar system, paper, like Word documents for every client. Like this, in retrospect, it was total shambles. But now we've got so much power and knowledge under our belt, and we've been doing way better than ever before. And I don't know, that's pretty much where I'm at now.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool.
That's a really funny trajectory. That's the blind date with a business is pretty funny to me.
That wasn't untrue. Like it was pretty much like, okay, fine. I guess like they don't suck, so let's go for it.
Yeah, blind date with a business. I love that. That's really, really great. Oh man. Yeah, so okay, so you kind of you've been doing this business. So you bought it in
2011.
2011. Okay. So yeah, about 10 years. And then did that class 2 years ago, the Phoenix Rising class, which I helped with the teaching of that one. That was one of the first like classes that I got to help like create curriculum and stuff with. That was a really interesting experience for me too. And I actually, you did the online portion of that one, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So, because I remember when we met in Charleston at Foundations, it was the funniest thing, getting to like connect those two moments together, just seeing you across the island. Like we caught eyes a couple of times and I was like, did I say something wrong? I was like looking around thinking that I said something wrong, and you were just like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. And so that's finally when we got to meet in person. So you've been kind of connecting all of these different pieces together, you know, buying the business 10 years ago, or I guess 13 years ago now, taking the class 2 years ago, starting with MaidCentral. During the class, honestly, you started with Maid, because the class would have been in February, and you started with MaidCentral in March of the same year. So you decided to rehaul everything at the same time.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Oh, it was hard. It was not a cakewalk. So first was getting buy-in from our staff, and some were not buying in so much, but I really believed in the product. So I ended up letting them go. And I ended up taking over the position for a while to get us on board and to get us rolling with it, because it was really hard. I don't know how others do it, but like as an owner, it's hard for me to delegate the learning process. Like
you had some members of your team that you had to let go because they didn't want to make the change.
They didn't see the benefit. They did not see. They were very risk adverse and really didn't want to see change. They didn't want to see. They were content. I mean, they were okay with status quo. They were okay with where they were.
They were comfortable, even though you've been doing the same thing for 10 years and getting less than acceptable results. That wasn't where, you know, the result, you weren't happy with the results, but I guess they were, because it was working for them.
Yeah, they were pretty okay with it. And anytime I try and like start training and educating, it just got a lot of resistance. So we ended up letting them go, and I do regret it a little bit. I hate, letting people go, and who doesn't, but I don't regret what it's done for my company. And I have a really amazing manager now who is very data driven and very, very numbers focused, which is exactly what I've been taught I need and what I found I need.
If you were to, go ahead.
No, we run into that from time to time where companies want to use MaidCentral, but they want to continue to do everything exactly the way that they had been doing it. And if you step back, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if you want to keep doing things the way you were doing it, just keep doing it with what you've been doing it with. And MaidCentral is a different way of doing business. And if you buy into that, and if you embrace the idea of change, you can put your business on a different trajectory and get better outcomes.
I would totally agree with that 100%.
And you told me that when we first met on Isle of Palms. I think that was the first thing you told me. It was, I think you said it changed your life, actually.
Oh, it did. Oh, it absolutely has. 100% it has.
Yeah.
I am so much happier in my company now. I'm so much more powerful within my company now. When I make decisions, it's got a lot of backing of facts and numbers that it's hard for anyone to argue. I mean, I tend to be in my heart a very emotional person, and it is hard for me to remove that from my business, which, you know, is my baby. I coddle it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But having a lot of that data and facts at my disposal really has honed in a lot of again, how we approach everything.
Yeah, I think, like, especially knowing that, knowing that doing things the way that you were doing it was not getting the outcomes you were wanting, and being able to see, and knowing that MaidCentral, making that switch to MaidCentral while taking that class as well, making all those switches together and knowing that, okay, these are going to help me get to those results, and who's on board with this, and being a passionate, emotional, knowing that your emotions are part of it person. Emotional is not a bad word, but for some reason it's a bad word now. I don't know. But you having an emotional response or whatever, and people not receiving that as a good thing, like they don't need seats on the bus, right? Like they're not going to the same destination. Yeah. They're not on the same trip as the rest of the company is. And I think that that's like it's a very interesting thing we see often when we're kind of going through this process where it's like, well, I mean, if this wasn't the destination that you wanted to go to, then we didn't need to all be on this bus anyways. We were on different buses to begin with. Why did we transfer?
Right.
We were on the right bus to begin with. So that's really interesting.
And that's all part of the change process. And the success that you're realizing now, in part, might not be happening if, those organizational changes hadn't have happened as well.
I would also agree with that. I'm, like I said, I hate that I had to do what I did, but I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes those hard choices are the ones that you can see having the biggest positive impact. Yes. That, it was hard in the moment, or, not something that you love to repeat, but you can tell that positive impact is where you want it to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that you're able to be a kind of a happier, more powerful owner. What are some of the things that you're kind of utilizing on a regular basis that are letting you be that happier, more powerful owner, CEO, individual for your business?
I mean, happiness has been more of a result of having a little bit more freedom. And that freedom has come with just being way more knowledgeable. Trying to think about what particular decisions MaidCentral has led me to. One, I can see when I don't have to worry about something. Like when my KPIs are straight, I know that is something, like, this is a subject matter now I can put on the back burner and deal with something that is now, does need attention, because there's always, like, is it employees, or is it clients, or is it, your office staff? Any one of these could be in unbalance, and being able to look at your numbers and understand the information behind it. So, like, for example, customer attrition. If you're having a big churn of customers, now maybe it's, a retraining thing, maybe it's an employee-based thing, or maybe you're not filling your service right. But knowing where to, at least to focus your energy, gives you a whole lot more peace of mind. Like, okay, I don't have to deal with this for a minute. Like, I can put that on the back burner. I'm going to let that fire burn until it needs attention again.
Yeah, it's not a fire yet, or it's not a fire yet, right? Like it's something to maybe be aware of. And maybe if it starts burning in the background, I'll pay attention to it. But right now, because I know what all of my numbers are, I know that number is not a fire right now. Yes. Like that number's it's a coal. if it gets the right blow on it, it might turn into a little raging bonfire that I need to pay attention to. But for right now, I don't need to even focus on that little coal over there. Like it's not even one that I need to worry about because you have access to everything. That's actually a really good point. I don't know if we've had it phrased that way in these partner profiles yet. So that's a really cool observation for yourself.
Yeah, well, and having that freedom to be able to say, you know, that this is not a priority for me. You know, have a fairly new-ish manager who she gets really pumped full of new ideas sometimes, and she gets really excited about it, and I'm like, but that's not a priority for us right now. Let's focus here. and being able to like show her like, and again, she's very numbers focused, she's very data focused, and as soon as I point that out, like, I mean, I get it. It's the new shiny and that's interesting, but like, let's focus here instead. And she's like, oh, yes, you're right. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And being able to have that kind of communication is really, really powerful.
So how does that work? I mean, do you guys like focus on the core KPIs? Do you have a few that you're working on at any one time? I mean, what you described there is powerful. Give us a little more detail.
So we do. We have a rolling spreadsheet of our KPIs, and through the virtue of MaidCentral, I've had, you know, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, of you know, within that scope, because it's always, you know, a scope of what is good and what is bad. Being able to understand the information behind it, and having a lot of data to back that up, also being a humongous component of it. But so we have this rolling scrolling, you know, and so we can see the slow progress of where our KPIs are changing and what's changing. And we can look back and, okay, we see these numbers are screwing up. Let's look at these days and let's see what's going on there's on those days that we can, you know, start drilling down into the core issue there. And I mean, again, we never had that data before to even be able to assess. I feel like that's probably the primary focus, is that like when something starts getting out of whack, we do that. But we've also like, I mean, there's some things we've done outside of it that we have like a project prioritization tool that I got from Foundations, that we have now in the office. Everyone has line items on it and we organize it by priority, and, you know, based on one of them being core KPIs, one of them being, you know, is it going to be paying off sooner or later? Is it going to take a little bit of time or a lot of bit of time? And so every Monday morning we have a team meeting and we talk about where our priorities are that week. We look at our KPIs. We talk about, you know, should we be focusing on hiring or sales this week? Because we're still a fairly small office. So it's so that's every week, every Monday we check in, we look at all that stuff, and we kind of make our game plan for the week.
Things are going to happen regardless. You know, you either make them happen or you're going to let them happen. And what you're describing here in my head sounds like you've transitioned from, you know, keeping your fingers crossed and hoping everything worked out okay, to where you've got more control of your business.
That's a pretty succinct way to put it. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, definitely more control and just like more awareness. You know, that idea of being able to see when something is going a direction that maybe you don't want it to, and then knowing what impacts that. I loved that part, especially where you're talking about, you know, you're looking at this weekly, you're seeing if the actions that you're taking are making the movement that you want it to go, right? Do you want that to go up or down? Type in, you know, is this number getting bigger or smaller? Is this where we want it to go? And then drilling into it. And I'm going to tie this back to something else that you said before too. You mentioned your customer attrition. Okay, well, where's that coming from? Is this because our quality is bad? So is this happening at this point of the process? Or is it somewhere in our sales process where we're setting the expectations wrong, and being able to use that information of like, okay, here's our top level data point that we're tracking this every single week of like, okay, we know what our customer attrition looks like. So when that number starts to go bad, now we can get even further of like, okay, so what is happening on this number? Is it happening on this part? Is it happening on the front end on our sales? Is it happening on the back end on our quality? Where's that disconnect coming in? Like, I love that. I really just love getting that little like blinker of like, look at me. And then here are all the little things that can impact that number, and knowing what those things are. Like, I just think that that's a really amazing part of the, like, just amazing way to implement these things, especially with a smaller team. Like, when it's only a couple of people and you have a whole business, no matter how big the business is, it's still a whole business.
Right.
Okay. It still has all of the things that a big business has. You still need to find a good way to consistently keep up on those things. And I think that's a really, the way that you've like connected those things is a really, really great way of doing that.
Well, thank you.
So your business has grown. It's in a better place. You feel like that you've got more control over it, which that equates to more freedom. You're not spending all of your time just worrying and hoping you'll get lucky, you know? I mean, you don't want to run your business based on luck. Are there any particular areas that are notable that we want to speak about? Any numbers that we'd want to hang on any of the KPIs you've been able to move since using MaidCentral?
So prior to this, Aja had sent me an email, particularly highlighting a few, and I spent a little bit of time kind of looking into those. One being customer attrition. So at Foundations, we covered this extensively, but Liz Trotter said it best by being sticky. So even though, so through MaidCentral, we send out scorecards to every client. And when it's a scale of 1 through 5 from what the client sees on the interior side, it's 0 through 4. So when a client goes from...
That's not what I meant to do, but all right.
So...
But what happened? Bring it back. I want to see that.
That was a pretty great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
There.
Oh, that's funny.
How many hours did that take?
Slyly, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Sorry, keep going.
Sure.
So Liz Trotter said it best by being sticky. So if a client on their end goes from a 5 to a 4, you still call them, even though it's like, hey, we're great, to we're good.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We'll call them. Hey, how can we get those 5-star feelings back again? And being sticky, like showing them that we do deeply care, even though it's going from I'm great to I'm good. We still want to know how to get you back to great. And it does a couple of things. One, it reinforces your commitment to quality. It reinforces to your employees how much that you care to get to the bottom of it, because it doesn't feel nice to them when they get from a 5 to a 4 and they don't know what went wrong. So following up and calling them and getting that information from them that you can relay to your team has been really powerful. We have way more information than ever before about, where we could improve, and we utilize that to the fullest. And so,
did you have a process before for like scorecards, feedback, or anything like that before?
If we're being honest, no news was good.
All right.
We would call after first-time cleans and occasionally after a will call client calls out of the blue for haven't been done in a year, we might call them afterwards, but probably mostly because we forgot that they were been serviced before. Rarely did we ever check in with our clients, and so overnight we were able to get so much more information before, and I've gotten my staff trained and comfortable with yes, I know it feels petty. We're doing this anyways. If you want us to stop, either give us a 5 or tell us what to do better.
Yeah. So I threw these stats up at the bottom, and so your customer attrition a year ago, I didn't pull up right when you started with MaidCentral, it's slightly after you started, was already really great.
Awesome.
So
you went from awesome to super awesome.
Yeah. So this was an interesting one when I was looking at your stats, particularly because we had 2 of these in particular, which were already really good numbers that got holy cow even better. And this improvement from 2.5% to under 2% I cannot stress how incredible that is. That is a very, very, very hard improvement to make, to go from already like suboptimal levels to just like, if your scorecards are a part of this, really being able to, but I think, talking about that change from, if they drop from top level to even just the next level down and really addressing that, that's obviously a big part of this, where they don't get to stew, right?
Yeah.
They don't get to even like think about being upset for longer than a little bit. So I mean, this is usually our numbers, if we're talking about somebody's, gone from really, really bad to like really great or whatever, but this is something unique. And I think that that's kind of cool. And I really want to bring attention to this, where you've gone from fantastic to holy cow, incredible. So definitely appreciate this about your business.
And if you do the math in terms of the average number of months a recurring customer stays with you, at the 2.48 churn rate, that comes out to be like 42 months, which is really good for an average, tenure of a recurring customer. But by dropping it to 1.82, that number goes up to like over 55. So that's like an extra 13 months. You're getting an extra year on average for every recurring customer you have. And you do the math on, how many times you clean a customer in a month and what you bill them a month. I mean, that is a wacky amount of additional value you're getting out of every customer.
Yeah.
So how did you do that? What's the secret sauce to that? I want to know how to do that.
Oh, did we lose your audio?
No, I got a phone call.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you're busy. Call you back.
Yeah, right. Getting really, as I said, Liz Trotter said it best, getting sticky. So anytime it drops, we give them a call. We find out, we try and get to the bottom of it. If they haven't filled out a scorecard in a while, we give them a personal phone call and say, just wanted to check in, see what's up.
It's a lot of touches. And you guys use the telephone.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
we do
there's
a lot of telephone calls, honestly. So a lot of our client base are older and
that's good to point out.
Yeah.
If Aja was your customer, she wouldn't want you to call her. She doesn't want to talk to you.
But I also submit my scorecards every single clean to avoid this exact situation.
I don't want them to call, so I'm going to reply.
Yes.
Yeah, if we don't hear from a client for a while, yeah, we're definitely calling them on the phone. We might even send a personal email. That outside of it, like, hey, just checking in, want to see what's up. Those are.
Let me ask you this, Aja. Do you give them a 5 every time, even though it might not be, just because you don't want to hear from them?
I will give a 5 pretty much every time. I will let them know in the 5 if it's not cleaning related and something was off, I will still keep it a 5. But if it is cleaning related and it was enough to like make me kind of bum, then I'll drop it down. But if it's not enough for me to be bummed, but I knew somebody else might be bummed about it, I will leave it a 5. And because it's about how I feel about the clean, not about like other things. So like, yeah, other people might care, but I don't care. I'm just happy with what was done. So it's always a 5 for me, pretty much. They let my dogs out once and I still gave them a 5 and just said, hey, make sure the door is closed. My dogs are escape artists. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did they get your dogs back?
Yeah, by the next day.
Oh man.
It was a rough.
That's bad. That's bad.
It's okay. So no, but like, I mean, getting the scorecards, I'm definitely one of those people that I will submit the scorecard every time and let them know. I will put a comment every single time because I'll let you know anything. I will always give you feedback to help, but it's not always going to be, I don't care. I'm not the one that cares, but I'll be helpful.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if I don't have my own service on a regular, I do it on more of a will call basis. And I feel like I'd probably be in a similar situation where I'd be like, I'm going to give you a 5, but you need to know there's this that's up. Yeah. I could see myself doing that for sure.
Yeah. I actually have two of our MaidCentral partners clean for my house. They alternate. So I get biweekly services, but monthly from each because I want to support both of them. So I just email the business and I'm just like, hey, I don't care. So I'm not going to change the scorecard because I literally don't care. But here's some notes. Like, I will let you know the notes because I know what it's supposed to be happening in this. I don't really care, but if you want to do anything with this, you can.
But don't call me.
Yeah, don't call me. I'm not mad. I will never be mad. I will still tip. I will be the most easy, laid back person you will ever service, but I will let you know everything you want to know.
Even letting your dogs escape, though, that's pretty. A lot of people get bent about that. Did I ever tell you about Snowball the cat?
No.
No? Okay, this was ages ago. We had a customer, the worksheet said, don't, be careful, don't let Snowball out. He's an escape artist. Team let Snowball out. Okay. So we spent the entire day tracking down this cat and finally got Snowball back. And it was kind of like, do we tell the customer? Do we tell the customer? Do we tell the customer? We finally, at the end of the day, we call the customer and let them know that, we're trying to track Snowball down. We're so sorry. We got Snowball back. It was like, good news. We got Snowball back. Snowball's in the house. It's all good. And the customer by that time got the message, called us back and said, Snowball died 2 days ago. So we catnapped somebody else's cat.
And this is why updating your work order notes are so important.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we read the worksheet. That was good. But
Oh man.
Anyway, I digress.
Sorry.
I digress.
We're off topic, but you have told me about Snowball. As soon as you started that story and started talking about looking, and I was like, oh no, Snowball died. Snowball died. I remember this story. Snowball did. Anyways. Goodness. So yeah, your customer attrition is unbelievably fantastic. I wanted to look, actually. I don't think I finished looking. I wanted to see how high on the list it was.
Yeah. So from a team member perspective, cleaning professional, I mean, is that a part of this as well? I mean, I'm assuming the turnover is really good as well, or low.
Honestly, it could be better. But it's definitely way better than it was. It's
So-
still very much improved.
Okay.
Right around 100%. Still a decent turnover.
100% is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. A lot of companies would give a lot to be at 100%.
Yeah.
Give Snowball.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so ranked, and I don't know how many of these are have the full year's worth of data in here, but you are the 19th lowest attrition number on our list. So they might all, I didn't look at all of them. I just looking at what your rank was. So some of those might be people who've only been on the platform for a little bit. So I didn't look at the exacts, but very, very out of 200 and almost 50. So significantly high up in on that listing there.
That's
for
awesome.
customer attrition. So keep that up. I'm very impressed by that number.
Thank you.
And then kind of on the other side of this, another one that also was really impressive as far as improvement went, that was already looking really good, was your recurring close rate. Are you using the online quoting tool? First question, because I didn't actually look.
Residentially, I am. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't do it for commercial, but definitely for residential, I do.
So that's even cooler of a number for me too. Is that all right? We'll see if I can get this to present this video without it doing some funky, cool things, but we'll see. Oh, it did. Well, there it is. So we went from 43%, which is already really awesome, to 62% as far as your recurring close rate goes. So that's huge, as well, as far as just, especially because some of those are coming in from online, which means you're not having to work for those.
Yeah.
They just exist.
What is your quoting process?
So most of what we do is over the phone. We do not do email or text or anything like that. We do exclusively through phone and with personal connection. So we've got an amazing script that we've got through information we got through foundations. Olu Augusta really was also very powerful in that educational process. Listening sales also hugely instrumental in how we now approach sales. And we try to, as much as we're possible, to get that person on the phone so that we can make that personal connection and sell the service. And being honest and upfront, like, this is what you can expect. And, if you're, we're playing with this thing now that we don't require initial cleaning fees or deep cleans initially. And being able to frame it like, if you're going to skip this deep clean, now you've got to give us more time to accommodate, like, if we're not getting to everything the first time, give us a little grace. And being very upfront with that information, so we're able to get some more budget conscious clients in the door as well, and people who are otherwise interested but they couldn't afford this like huge initial rate. We've been making that personal connection and asking also more emotionally based questions of like, what are you trying to get out of this? Where are your biggest pain points that we can help you with? And being able to focus on those and making sure that their biggest priority is our biggest priority. Because they might not say, they may not necessarily want the whole deep clean, but by golly, you better get their floors good and well. And being able to make sure that is, okay, we can go a little bit lighter here and there, but make sure that the floors are done really well, so we're not spending an extra amount of time in there. And having that information on an individual basis and connecting and listening to what the customer really wants.
So most of these are over the phone?
Yeah, I would say we do probably 90% phone. Well, even if they fill out an online quoting tool, we're still calling them.
You're still following up on the phone.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've developed a process, a culture where you're in no hurry to get off the call. It sounds like you'll sit there and chat with them for a good while if they're willing to. Is that right?
Man. Yeah, I would. We really do, actually. I would say maybe not everyone wants to spend that amount of time on the phone, but we've got some chatty Cathys in our office who will absolutely listen to your whole snowball story, and we'll just sit there and chew the cud. That they were quite happy to do so and to make that, because they know that is all emotional connection, and the more that we can connect with our clients, the more that they're going to be a little bit more gracious when we miss the mark.
Do you think it helps them reach out to you when something maybe does go wrong later on in the process? Like, do you think do you feel like you have a better connection with them than maybe even your technicians do because of that kind of forward relationship building? Or do you feel like it affects the relationship?
I wouldn't say that. I can't really answer that honestly. If the client feels more connected to the office than the cleaners, because I can't really see it entirely from the other side. I just know that they do still really greatly value the office and still very much foster that relationship so that when there is something going wrong, that they're more comfortable to bring it up. Because there's a lot of people who don't want to complain. They never want to. They're going to be like, oh, you missed an entire level of my house. Well, I'm still going to give you 5 stars.
Right.
But being able to have them, right.
Guilty.
I mean, that is absolutely, a lot of people who they just don't want to stir the pot. They just want to try and keep it as easy going. And those are the people who, you keep them for a while, but then you get left high and dry when they're like, it's not me. It's not you, it's me. And you don't really get any information from them. Those are the most important to be really reaching out to and making that connection, because then they do feel comfortable, like, oh, hey, you're my buddy. I can talk to you about this. That is really important. And also, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was reading something not too long ago that suggested that a lot of sales techniques, especially over the phone, encourage their salespeople to hurry up with the call and let's get on and let's go to another one. And that's not really good for conversion. That the longer you can keep that prospect on the phone, and a big part of it is asking really good questions and then being quiet and let the customer talk, and kind of encouraging them to keep, sharing more and more about them and what they're looking for and what they want. And so it sounds, I don't know if that's strategic or just something that's evolved, but that very well might, be a part of why your close rate's so high.
Yeah, I think we ended up, hey, Denise, also somebody that was on Poem with us, our little house mom.
House mom.
Best house mom ever. Kept me fed.
Very well.
Very well. Kept me very well fed. But yeah, we did actually look up some, I ended up looking up some like reports on this, like looking up some not reports, just like actual studies on sales call times and stuff like that. And like the most successful sale call times are significantly longer, like 50% longer than the less successful calls. And I think it's especially true in our industry, just because we're in people's homes. It's just there's an element of personal connection that we will never be able to completely remove from what we need in our processes. So it's just like, it makes sense, when you really pull it down to baseline, it makes sense. We're in people's homes. You can't completely remove that personal element. And the more that you can talk to them and build that trust like you're doing it, yeah.
Trust is such a huge part of it. And the longer discussion, you're building that bond. We know more about them, they know more about us. All that leads to trust. It all makes sense.
Yeah,
So
I feel like with just one final thought, that with the close rate, that it is also intrinsic to the following up that MaidCentral helps us do. That doing those client touches, a day later, 2 days later, both by text, email, and phone call. Even if they book entirely online, we're still reaching out to get those final details and to make that personal connection. If they don't answer, that's fine. I'm not going to judge them for it. But
sorry.
we still want to make all of that personal connection that we possibly can, because the last thing that I really want is for someone to feel like they're speaking to a void.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's still a balancing act. We're a technological age working in a personal connection industry. So it's just kind of, creating those little intertwinings where we can, matching those together, I think, is where we're at right now. So the last sort of core KPI that I kind of pulled for you as far as an improvement goes was a very interesting one, because I was curious about a little bit on your payroll, if you changed your payment methods on this, because this is a KPI that I tried for a very, 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 very long time to improve in multiple ways, and could not get it to slide this much. So, and that is your payroll percent to revenue, where you got that to drop 3%, which, I mean, really is, again, one of those ones where it doesn't sound like it is going to, oh, I forgot to change the numbers there. That would be a crazy percent to revenue, let me tell you.
It looks pretty, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get there. But it was from 43.9% to 40.9% in the last year. So what have you done along that to really kind of drive that down a little bit?
Rate increases.
Okay.
Rate increases, doing and just generally overall price increases for initial clients.
Yeah.
So frankly, especially because of all the data that we get from MaidCentral and knowing where we were lacking, we realized really quickly that we were not actually making the money that we should have been, and that we were vastly underpriced. And so, I mean, yeah, just increasing our rates, increasing our everyone's everything.
How hard was it? How hard was it to do that?
Well, with the quoting tool, it's pretty easy. I think the hardest part was my own paradigm shift, because it was really hard to spit out that number to say, 3 weeks ago, I would have been saying a much lower number, but now I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to let on that's how I'm feeling, because that's a me problem. That's not necessarily a them problem. We're in
the internal sticker shock.
Yes. So we live in a fairly affluent area, and we've got a lot of people around DC that commute to DC, the money is there. I just didn't have the guts to ask for it. And now that I've got a whole lot more justification under my belt to understand that, yes, I am asking more, and this is why, has really been hugely instrumental in just boosting my ability to, and to also train others to just spit it out, you know?
What are some of those justifications? Because this is something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with in terms of especially training other salespeople and even in their own internal, roadblocks. How do you justify it to yourself when you're seeing that new price, your sticker shocking yourself? What are you telling yourself?
So one, we are still working in teams, and we have an office that we dispatch from every morning. We're exploring actually solos now, thanks to you, Asha. And but looking at our efficiency, our map efficiency, we see these clients, and especially if we know that if they're upfront about any kind of scheduling needs, and we're not already in their neighborhood that day. Okay, well now we know that we need to charge a travel fee. We need to charge it like a little bit more to accommodate their scheduling request. Before, we never had the information to even be able to know to ask for that. We are, my goodness, efficiency, productivity. I did not realize how much time in a day was wasted in travel time, and that has been another very instrumental, because of that, and if this is what our max is, if this is what I think is going to be reasonable for us to ask for out of our staff right now, then we need to be charging so much more to make up for that. And that's, I think those are probably the big ones. Productivity, efficiency, the master schedule is also pretty hugely instrumental, but that's more from a productivity stance, more efficiency. I'm sorry.
Efficiency, but yeah, still, that's huge. And do you pay hourly?
We still pay hourly. Yeah.
Being able to drop that payroll percent to revenue number like that while still paying hourly is huge.
Yeah. I'm not gonna ask you what your profit margin is, but I'm just gonna throw something out there and say, assume it's 10%. That's kind of a normal benchmark. That 3% decrease in payroll to revenue is like taking your profit margin from 10% to 13%. That's a 30% improvement. That means that like in 8 months, you're making as much money as normally it would take you 12 months. So the profit you make in months 9 through 12 is additional to what you would be otherwise. And we hear this on a regular basis where people just figure out how to do rate increases, not the mechanics. The mechanics who make it really easy, but the emotional part. And after they do it, it's liberating. It's like, God, I wish I'd have done that sooner.
Yes. I feel that the first of every month.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. That math that you just threw out, Tom, that's actually crazy that you just got like a free 3 months out of the year with that improvement there. 4 months. I can math. Free 4 months out of the year out of that, or like an additional 4 months out of the year out of that improvement. So it's a huge one. And like, I feel like these improvements are so, we've done so much work in teaching how they all relate, right? Like you can see this number and you can see that it's driving down, and we can talk about, we improve payroll percent to revenue 3%, but like, no, if we put that into terms of like, if we were at a pretty typical 10% net profit, that's a 30% improvement on net profit. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. That is pretty huge.
Oh.
We heard from another MaidCentral partner earlier this week. We're in a meeting and I just get this message, and they were sharing how they did rate increases and they basically tripled their profit off of the same and didn't lose a single customer, not one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So those are some interesting, those validations. Sometimes you just got to give yourself a hard talk.
I
triple your profit.
I told her to take the rest of the day off.
I would too
She
if I
did
were-
not.
She didn't, but she should
No.
have.
Nah, she emailed me later. I know she did that. Yeah. So yeah, we're getting into the last hour here, or last hour.
Yeah, we got one more hour ago.
We
No,
got a whole nother
you're
hour.
kidding. You're
I
kidding.
might need some water first.
Last 10 minutes here. So I guess just, you've told us we've Tom and I have gotten to spend a whole week with you. So I know we've gotten to talk. But for anybody else who is maybe going to see this, what are some things that you would want people to know about, I guess either their numbers, MaidCentral, cleaning industry? I don't know. Now's your moment to shine. What do you got?
I feel like the best piece of advice that I've gotten as like a verbal thing, if you can unmake a decision, try it. There's no harm in trying it. And I can't really think of a single decision that I can unmake.
You remember what we call those?
I don't.
Reversible decisions.
Reversible decisions. Yeah. That has been very powerful for me because there's, for example, we played for a while about the quoting tool online. Like, do we want to keep it on their website? Do we want to take it off? We kind of waffled back and forth, and we've kind of decided ultimately that we're going to do it when we during the spring when we're getting a lot more invigorated, spring cleaning interest. But when sales drop off, we'll take it off, and there's no reason to ever unmake that decision within a moment's notice. So, there's so many other decisions I can think of that it's like, well, why not? Let's give it a shot and let's see what happens. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we'll live and learn and we won't do it again. And also framing that for our technicians as well. Like, hey, we're just going to, for example, we're trying out solos right now. And that is involving a lot of buy-in from our employees because we don't want to lose any of our employees by this, but we really do want to try and see how it works for us and how we're going to be able to make this work for us. Because there's 1,000 ways to break an egg. So we've got a whole lot of preliminary buy-in from our employees because we're like, hey, we're just going to try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you don't like it, you just talk to us. And if we can fix it, we will. And if we can't, then we don't. And, all you lose is a week of your time.
1,000 ways to break an egg, and you're a professional chef, so you know that's an authoritative place.
That's true.
So, we got a couple of events coming up here shortly. We haven't talked about those yet, have we?
We have not.
I'm going to squeeze those in before we forget.
No worries.
And I'm efforting to share a screen. See if this works better than some of our graphics. I'm just kidding.
I'm working on it. It's a new skill.
It's going to be awesome. There is a ISSA regional event at Gosha Barron's, I want to say house, her office. How about that? We're going to do it at our office, Helping Hands in Chicago. It's going to be pretty cool. Some of the speakers are going to be the same ones that we had the opportunity to enjoy in DC. The headliner here is Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner. If you've never heard him speak, he's worth the price of admission.
You might need to zoom in a little bit, Tom. Your screen is very high resolution. There we go.
How about that? Okay,
Much
so I'm
better.
gonna get down
Thank
here.
you.
Dr. Gavin, he, Aja, you saw him, right?
Yeah, great. So entertaining. Yeah, and very informational. Like, I feel like I've been talking to people about what he talked about outside of the industry ever since.
He's part of GBAC, and they really kind of get into the science of infection control. Like if there's a breakout in Ebola somewhere on the other side of the world, he puts on a Ghostbuster suit and goes over there, and he's one of the people that's dealing with it. And he brings ATP meters and all kinds of other neat tools and how to measure, cleanliness, and he really brings it from a standpoint that there's a really a big health component to the professional services that residential cleaners provide. Ricky Regalado and RJ. Ricky's going to be there. He lives in Chicago, and they're going to be talking about commercial cleaning. Gosha is going to be giving us something on culture. We got a piece on AI here. We're going to do like an hour. It's got Austin and Alvin's going to be there as well. And we're going to kind of give an intro to some AI tools that you can use in your business. And Philemon is going to be talking about 21st century with Google and VAs. He spoke in DC as well, didn't he?
Yeah, feels great.
So this is going to be really cool. And you want to be there for this because the following day, there's going to be an entire day dedicated to artificial intelligence. And Alvin and Austin are going to be leading this discussion. And they're two of our resident experts on the MaidCentral side. And this isn't really specifically MaidCentral focus. We're going to show tools that anybody who's running a professional house cleaning business can use to help with marketing, to help with logistics, help with getting a higher close rate, help with just the general admin and minutia of your business. They've got a full day's worth of tools they're going to show you. We're going to be logging in together and trying some stuff. If you think you don't know how to write HTML code, you're wrong. We're going to show you how to do that with AI. It's pretty amazing, actually. And
Yeah,
you're
these
going to
two
leave
guys
there at the end of the
are
day
great.
with a whole new level of confidence in terms of things you can do in your cleaning business that you didn't think you could before.
Yeah.
All because of artificial intelligence. And I dropped the link to both of these events in chat. They're both going to sell out. So if you're interested in this, you want to jump on it. Kim,
Sir.
I want to thank you again for not only being a guest. This is such a small part of it, but the courage and commitment that you've made to your business and the industry as a whole, and the changes you've led, and congratulate you as well in terms of the benefit the value that's being created from that. And thank you for your support, because we're all working towards the same thing.
I really appreciate that. And I would also be remiss to not acknowledge my girl, Erin, who is my manager. She's absolutely incredible and is the bronze to my brain. And I owe a lot to her. And I just had to give that shout out.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it was very wonderful to meet her as well, in DC. So we were blessed I don't know, we were privileged to be able to have her as part of our group at our DC event as well. And she and I got to go down the rabbit hole of Fallout and all the fun stuff. So
that's right. You basically you signed up and gave her the opportunity to go to the event in DC.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. It was on the tail end of Foundations, and I felt like she got way more out of it than I would have, because I was already pretty saturated with information. And
it was the perfect balance, I think. I think it connected you guys just well, like just gave that perfect little linking of information and tools. And yeah, no, I think that was great. It took me a second to make the connection. And then once I did, I was like, oh my God, it makes perfect sense. Duh. Yeah. Of course you guys are from the same company. This makes unbelievable sense. So yes, thank you. And for having such a great team and being part of our partnership here with MaidCentral.
It's a pleasure.
So
thank you.
We are at the top of the hour, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this a wrap for today. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank
Aja,
you.
I guess I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Weird.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks. I guess that'll be the 21st of May with another guest in MaidCentral Partner Profiles.
Yes,
So then, everybody take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.